Hi, my name is Matt from Public Sector Personnel Consultants. Your employer has selected our firm to review your job descriptions and perform a salary and benefits survey for your administrative or non-represented positions. Wanted to provide a brief overview of the study, highlight your opportunities to participate, and walk you through some brief screenshots of a job questionnaire that will allow you to review your job description. The full name of our firm is quite a mouthful, so we go by PSPC, but this is all that we do. We do salary and benefit surveys for cities, counties, school districts, special districts, including utility districts and fire districts throughout the United States. We perform maybe 50 to 60 studies every year. We've had a chance to work with some of your neighbors, some other fire districts in the area, some of your even comparator cities that have fire departments. All that qualifies us to do is ask good questions, such as what factors influence your district's ability to attract and retain staff, or your fire department's ability to attract and retain staff. The classification review is really just to ensure that the job description is up to date before we do a market comparison. Certainly, we can ask some questions around your job title to ensure it makes sense. If the job description needs to be updated, we can certainly, create those updates with your input through these job questionnaires. The compensation study is really helpful in identifying what is the going rate for each of our positions. There are between 25 and 35 different job titles on your administrative wage scale. Globally, when we do these studies, it's really under the broader heading of recruitment and retention. We want to ensure we're competitive, we want to ensure we're fair, consistent, and are offering sustainable pay and benefits to keep up with our market. The classification study itself is really your area to review your job description. We have created an online position analysis questionnaire, or PAQ, that will lead you through a review of your job description and ask some pointed questions about your job duties, responsibilities, your opinion about minimum qualifications. So, what types of experience, knowledge, and skills are required? So, I have screenshots of that I'll show briefly. Again, that information will flow into job description updates where necessary. It will also flow into making job comparisons based on what you're actually doing when you're at work. And that is a challenge because no two jobs are alike. When we compare other fire districts, we compare to other fire departments or other public employers in the area, or even private employers in the area for some of your positions. No two jobs are quite alike. But we want to start with an opportunity to review your job description and you know your job the best. The PAQ process on the right-hand side of the screen here, everyone will have an opportunity to review their job description. You can complete a PAQ. If there are a few of you with the same job title and you perform the same job duties, you can work on them as a group, or you can fill out your own questionnaire. But I want to reinforce it is the job that we're studying rather than you, the individual. It is not a performance review. It is not a staffing review. It is simply an opportunity for you to look at your job description and assure us that when we're doing our market comparisons, that you've had a chance to look at those job descriptions recently. The salary and the benefits survey will really allow us to collect job descriptions, org charts, salary plans, MOUs, benefits offerings from other employers that you're competing with. These are likely other fire districts, other fire departments, either at the municipal level. We can layer in some private sector data where appropriate to answer two big questions, as I mentioned. How are we doing compared to our market? And if we're not where we want to be or need to be, that will allow us to recruit and retain, what changes might be warranted to allow us to compete? So, reviewing your pay table, recommending pay ranges for every position. So, some common outcomes, I mentioned those. Job titles, yeah, maybe an opportunity to review job titles and change those up if that makes sense. Updating job descriptions, but ultimately it's layering in that salary and benefits data to a really common outcome or goal, and that is to be consistent and to be competitive. If we need to see some range movement because market says so, we'll be working with your leadership and your finance folks to identify how best to affect that change. But we'll be reviewing the pay table, the number of salary ranges available, if there are steps on your chart, the distance between each step, and then we'll be placing each position onto a salary range that matches up with market and matches up with those job duty and responsibility that we're going to gather from these questionnaires. Sometimes implementation of change, and we don't know yet, but if you've fallen behind market, it might take your employer a couple of budget cycles to catch up to market. We never want to see you, do a study in the place of doing your annual budget or anything else that you might be used to from a salary administration standpoint. So planning for a cost of living adjustment or a step increase, those things tend to continue on with or without our study efforts. Just a couple of probably disclaimers here. Nobody's going backwards. We're not trying to take anything away from anybody. And we want to see you continue to do regular salary adjustments, possibly however you currently do them. So combination of cost of living, merit, step, market, in this particular case, we'll be layering in some market data as well. So meant to be a very positive thing that your employer wants to do for you, not to you. Very important distinction, but meant to be a pretty transparent and positive exercise. The PAQ process will begin. You'll see probably a series of emails, but at least one, if not two. One, just kind of an intro to this video, and then you will receive a link that will allow you to start a PAQ. This is an online platform that will allow you to review your job description. I've set some kind of soft deadlines in here that really by the end of December, we want to try and get all of these back. They'll take probably an hour to two. I would say try not to take more than 2 hours, but we do want you to have, work time available to do this. So certainly your leadership knows it's occurring, and in most instances, your leadership's jobs are also included in this review. You'll see some drop-down information that we've attempted to pre-populate with information out of your payroll file. So really just kind of some housekeeping at the top of really what is page one of the questionnaire, your name, your title, your department. So you'll be able to find yourself and it'll pre-populate your email address, your supervisor's name, and your supervisor's email address. But you can overwrite any of that. If any of that is incorrect, you can, correct it. Why we want your email in here is super critical. You are going to receive emails from our PAQ system that will allow you to save this document and continue later. So when I mentioned you'll get an email with a link to start a PAQ, we're never going to use that link after you start your PAQ. You will notice as we get a couple of pages in to the questionnaire that there is a save and continue later option, so that if you're interrupted or you run out of time or you want to let things kind of sit for a day or two and then come back to it, the system will send you a new email that says, hey, I see that you left off on page 3. Click here to continue on page 3. So that link that you will receive to your email will be very unique to you and where you leave off on the questionnaire. If you're working on this as a group, you can tag some of your coworkers. You'll see in blue here the ability to navigate between the questionnaire, the back, and next. I would use those instead of the browser back and next, just so none of the progress is lost. We're really on the bottom of page 1 here. Most job descriptions have 3 major sections to them. The first is a summary statement or a definition of the position, a couple of sentences. So think high level for a moment. When someone asks you what you do for a living, what do you tell them? What role does your job serve in allowing your department, your division, your employer to provide services to those that are, in need or requesting those services? Maybe you wear multiple hats. You might have 2 different jobs. You might do some accounting work, but you also do some IT support work, or you do some communication and social media work. Those are sometimes 2 different jobs out in the market. So if you want to tell us about job number 1 in a couple of sentences, and then job number 2, a couple of sentences, that's great. There's also an option here. You're not required to do our work for us, but are there other job titles out in the market that you're aware of that says, hey, you know what, I'm called a fairly generic title, admin specialist, but I'm really doing accounts payable or payroll or accounts receivable or something like that. So if you want to point us in that direction just to kind of be helpful, you can leave that box blank. Otherwise, the next page is the next major section of a job description. Duties, responsibilities, listing out the things that you do while you're at work. This page expands. There is no limit to the characters. We might have offered 6 or 8 boxes, but really what we're asking you to do is write down what you do at work. This becomes the body of your job description, 8, 10, 12 bullet points that describe tasks, actions, functions, duties, and responsibilities that are assigned to your desk. So if you want to look at your current job description and identify if any of those are now out of date, or there are additional tasks that you have assumed that you want to add, this is a great spot to do that. If there are tasks you perform every day, I would say write them down and label them as daily. If there are things that you do less frequently, maybe there's some reporting that you do once a month, once a quarter, maybe budget season changes some of your job duties a little bit. Tell us that, right? So maybe it's a smaller percentage of time, but also an important duty that we should get documented on here. This will be the hardest page because it is kind of a blank page, allowing you to write down all of your job duties and responsibilities. You'll also notice at the top of my screenshot the save and continue later button. That should show up as we get into kind of page 2 and beyond of the questionnaire, allowing you to make some progress, save, close out your browser, and that system will render out a new email with a link that says, hey, come on back. Pick back up on page 2 or page 3, wherever we leave off. If we've successfully written down tasks that we perform, give some thought to what you have to know and what you have to be good at. Our last major section of most job descriptions is a broad heading of minimum qualifications: knowledge, skills, information sources, education, experience, licenses, certifications. Give us your opinion here. Does your job require a high school diploma or a 2 or 4 year degree? Some previous experience? Does that need to be in a fire department, in a municipal setting, any other type of background that might be helpful? Does your job require any licenses or certifications? There may also be some questions. My screenshot's a little bit cut off, but for compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, are you doing any lifting, climbing, standing, carrying, bending? Are there physical demands placed on your position where somebody applies for this job, maybe needs to have some of those physical capabilities or not? So just to be careful with the Americans with Disabilities Act asking a couple of questions about physical demands. We switch gears. Reminder that save and continue later banner follows us around. When you come to work every day, how specific are the work instructions that you're given? Does your supervisor meet you every day with a list of tasks you're to perform? Do you check in with that supervisor on a regular basis? Maybe the opposite. Maybe you work on projects that take weeks or take months, and you have the latitude and the flexibility to decide how you're going to meet the deadlines associated with that project. Maybe you come back together with your supervisor periodically or once a week. So just tell us about that. Are there any decisions that you're expected to make? What are the most difficult or important decisions that you're expected to make? Is there a liability or a safety, component to any decisions you're expected to make? Do you have budgetary responsibilities where you need to be good stewards with our dollars? What comes up that your supervisor wants to be the one to sign off on that, decision versus, hey, I can purchase up to, or, that kind of thing. And then lastly, who do you interact with across, maybe you're just within the employer, within the district. Are you interacting with people from other departments, other divisions? How about outside the organization? Are you coming into contact with the public, with vendors, with suppliers, with other maybe law enforcement or public safety agencies? That kind of thing. And then if we didn't ask any questions that you think we should, there is a box here. I think it's labeled number 26 on my screen share. Anything else that we should have asked? Anything else that you want to tell us about your position? If you are responsible for other employees, meaning you're a supervisor, you're a manager, you're signing off on the work that's being done by a contractor, by a vendor, tell us about that. Who and how many people report to you, either directly or indirectly? List out their job titles or attach an organization chart. Back on this previous screen, I think there is a spot where you can attach additional information. So if there's anything else you want to attach, like a marked up job description or more details, there is that option. If you have personnel responsibilities, tell us about that. Maybe you don't get the final say, but you have significant input when it comes to hiring, recommending somebody for promotion, reviewing someone's performance, approving their time off request, that kind of thing. If you've made it to the signature page, you can save and continue later if you want to wait to submit. But once you submit on this page and signature wise, our system is going to spend a little bit of time rendering out a PDF of your complete questionnaire. You should receive, probably in about 2 to 3 hours, just depends on how busy that system is. You will receive a PDF of your completed questionnaire, and so too will your supervisor or manager that's listed all the way back on page 1 of the PAQ. Nobody can change what you give us on the questionnaire. So details, duties, responsibilities, all of those will come through and be captured by our system into a PDF, but your supervisor has an opportunity to review and comment, simply so that we don't forget anything that might be critical, maybe a less performed or less frequently performed job duty that we want to make sure your job gets credit for. So you'll see a PDF, your supervisor will get notified that you completed a PAQ and also have an opportunity to comment. And we'll try and get all of that done here pretty quickly in the month of December into early January. Thank you very much for your time watching the video. Certainly, thank you for your time in completing a questionnaire. And I think that's it.